name is Stephanie Boozer. I'm with CUGC HQ, and I'm so excited to welcome you to today's webinar with Goliath Technologies. I'm talking about AI Troubleshooting Assistant and how it can help you speed up your processes, keep your Citrix end users happy, and just free up more time for you to do all the other stuff that's on your plate during the day. But before we get started, just have a couple of housekeeping details. Tomorrow is our virtual government exchange event. It's not quite 4 hours, but almost. It's the afternoon. We've got some great Citrix expert speakers on tap. They're going to be talking about all kinds of information that is focused towards the public sector. So if you work in that area or support Citrix customers in that area, definitely love to have you join us tomorrow. I'll put a link in the chat right now to our events calendar so that you can find that event and our others that we have coming up. Also, we are recording today's session, and you will get a link to that recording via email tomorrow, so just be on the lookout for that. We have a separate Q&A and chat panel, so I think a lot of you are talking in the chat right now, which is awesome. I love it. But you can also type your questions directly for our presenters into the Q&A, so you should see a little section down at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, and you can put questions directly in there for our presenters. All right, so without further ado, let me introduce who we have. Chris Twiest is a CTP. Hello, Chris.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
And Keary Pence, Director of Product Marketing at Goliath. Thank you, Keary, and welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, well, I'm going to hand things over to your capable hands. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go on mute here, and you guys take it away.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. All right, we should be good here. All right. So thank you all for joining. I'm actually excited about this session. I'm excited particularly to have Chris on, because I like working with Chris a lot, but being a musician, having gone to school for music, taught, played professionally for years, I love following Chris's AI music journey that he posts on LinkedIn. So it's been really cool to kind of watch that. But then when I decided to do this session, I'm like, oh, who is it that I want to bring on to really talk about it? And it had to be Chris. There was no other person that I wanted to bring on. So I appreciate Chris joining us for this session. And Chris, I appreciate you making public your musical journey, your AI. Look, I taught for so many years that now I'm going down a rabbit trail, but it just hits a passion of mine. I taught for so many years. You know, it's funny, as an older person now, you know, more mature, you spend time teaching young kids about music and helping them to understand, like, what is the definition of music? And it's just changed over so many years. And, you know, we come with our own preconceptions. But, man, AI has just, and quite honestly, just technology in general has absolutely flipped the script upside down. I mean, you're creating stuff that you're not on the same continent with some of the people that you're creating with. I think it's cool. So anyways, rabbit trail, we'll get focused back in here.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll tell a little bit more about that, I think, in the next slide or two. Yeah.
All right. So here's our purpose for today. You know, we're all Citrix professionals, and to what extent that looks like in our daily lives might be different, but we're all dealing with Citrix from a day-to-day basis. And troubleshooting end user experience is the lion's share of our job, regardless of whether or not we think it should be or not. It just is. We put out fires all day long. So if you're not familiar with Goliath, you know, we'll do a little bit of an introduction as to who Goliath is. But what I want to focus on today is really how we're advancing our technology to make it more user-friendly, effectively to make it easier for you to do your job, your day-to-day workflows faster, so that you can actually get back to the work at hand, which is a lot of times more strategic projects that you haven't had time to. So we'll look at things like, how to determine where to look and where not to look within your infrastructure, how to quickly identify what the root cause of user experience issues are, and then different ways that we can document it objectively so that you can not only prove permanent remediation, but you can also share that with management and other constituents in ways that are meaningful and actionable for them. But our focus today is all around AI and how we bring this into the mix. And so I want to have Chris just kind of spend a little bit of time talking about his thoughts around AI and how it fits into really what we all do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, of course. So like the last slide say, AI is really here to stay. There is no way around it anymore. And like Keary said at the beginning, it's something we didn't actually talk about. You surprised me with that part, but yeah, I am a musician too. Next to being a CTP and a technology officer at Rawworks, I'm a musician too. And these days, like album art and even whole video clips we generate with AI, which is kind of cool. I'll post a little self-promotion. I'll post the link in YouTube. You can see the clip of my band is fully created with AI. It was like, I think 12,000 AI images generated to flow together to make one music video. That was really awesome. But even the tools we use to create music these days all come with AI components. Like mastering software was something that was like super specialized. You finally did your mix and then you go into mastering and you would tinker and tinker. And these days it's just you press on an AI button, it listens to a part of your song and it's going to be like, okay, this is the right mastering for you. And you see it's even integrated these days in websites. You just have online websites. Here's my song. Click on an AI button and it's mastered for you. It's insane how fast that is going. And I think the same is going with AI in the workspace. Like we see, like just on each level, you have AI at the moment. So you have AI integrated into applications like email. I don't know if you notice it, but it's been there for years. Like answering an email on your iPhone, Siri already read your email, know if there's appointments in there. That then she comes with like, do you want to have this appointment in your agenda? And the same is like the desktop Outlook version also has all those features now. And it's total AI. The latest version of Word is predicting your next text and sentences that you want to type. And what we are seeing with our customers now at Rawworks is that we are even creating custom Chat GPT type talking bots for employees. So instead of employees clicking around in their application, they just have a chatbot and they can ask stuff. We are doing that at the moment with a customer that provides healthcare to the elderly, and they have like their whole patients stuff. And they are now converting that whole database and that whole application to data that can then be leveraged with an own API that runs on Azure. You can create your own ChatGPT Azure data set and put it into that language model. And that allows you to not only like use your application, but talk to your application for real. Just type like, okay, what is my next patient I need to see or to take care of? Where do I need to go next? And it will just tell you, like ChatGPT tells you, with the information of your company. And that is like the next part in the AI is like we have been moving away more and more away from heavy application use every time. You see this with the low-code revolution. Like, okay, what you used to do in this big application, we're now doing it small. Even Citrix took part in that low-code revolution with the micro apps. Now it's mostly done with OutSystems and Mendix. And you see, that has been a whole booming business. And now it's the next step. Now it's not even low code. Now we're taking that old application, we're just putting it in AI and just talk to it. That is really a big thing that we're seeing happening. And that's not going to stop. That's going to be more and more and more. The same is with security AIs. So security AIs are AIs that are watching what are you doing on the system. Is this normal? And it's awesome. It allows you to leverage like what for a human would not be visible. Like, okay, every day you're transferring this amount of data. An AI can see a pattern, can detect it, and see if you deviate from the pattern. That can mean that there might be your account compromised. We see that a lot happening now too. Onboarding AI, the same, like a chatbot that helps you. That it can really be easy. It can be an easy chatbot that just says, welcome to the company. If you're searching for this or that, just a Chat GPT style. And then the last, of course, is like a troubleshooting AI that helps you fix problems, for example, with Citrix. And that is what we are here to see more. And that's something that Keary is going to show more is like, how is that troubleshooting AI? And actually also a little bit of the onboarding AI I know within Goliath, like if you have questions about the product. And that's what we're going to see. And again, I really think AI is here to stay. And yeah, for example, I don't know if any of you have used, for example, Chat GPT to create PowerShell, but it's a really, really good tool to create PowerShell scripts, really easy. And at the moment, I have now multiple times delivered scripts that I needed for a customer that were just written by Chat GPT. It's that easy. The only thing is, always don't forget to paste like a script that you're working in onto ChatGPT, because everything you're putting into ChatGPT, it will save. So if you're working on a script that has passwords or customer data, and you're like, oh, maybe ChatGPT can help me make the script better, don't paste it in, because then they have that information. That's not what you want. But just asking like, okay, I want to do this and this in the Active Directory. Can you write me PowerShell? It's super good at that. So yeah, and that's gonna. I promise you, in the next 5 to 10 years, you can just ask, okay, do me a Citrix Cloud environment for 100 users, and it will just ChatGPT will just start creating a script or doing it itself for real. It will get there. I'm sure of that.
There you go, and there you go, Brian.
Yeah.
At that point, then you'll just be able to click submit logs to Citrix. It'll be there.
Yeah, definitely.
Say it.
That will be the first chatbot.
So yeah, all of this, I mean, the whole idea of AI is to make life easier, right? And from our perspective, we don't want it to be just another tool that we use, because the number of tools is almost becoming a problem in and of itself. So the idea of being able to incorporate AI into your normal troubleshooting workflow and having it presented in a way that is usable in that fashion, that becomes just as important as the fact that you have access to it. And all of it is about trying to alleviate the troubleshooting bottleneck that everybody has. And so we see this all the time, 9 out of 10 times. And this is something that we've pulled our customers with. When a user reports an issue, whatever they're saying is the issue has nothing to do with the root cause. And that, you guys see this all the time. When you get those user submitted tickets, they're vague. They don't give you any information. If they do give you information, it's probably wrong information. So you're always starting from scratch, trying to get to the root cause, which leads to 90% of the mean time to resolution is actually spent figuring out what the problem is to begin with. Most of the time, problems are fairly easy to fix if you know where to look and how to get to the root cause quickly. And then for everybody on the call who's a Citrix admin, which I assume most, if not all of you are, majority of the time when issues get reported as being a Citrix issue, it actually isn't Citrix that is the root cause. It may be something across the IT infrastructure that is impacting Citrix, and so therefore it looks like Citrix is the issue. But again, Citrix isn't the root cause, so you're expected to troubleshoot this issue, but in a lot of cases, you don't have the tools necessary or the visibility necessary to even see what those other IT elements are doing and how they're impacting that end user's experience. So we take a go ahead.
I think like Melissa is saying here, like app is running in Citrix, it's a Citrix issue. I just wanted to add to it, like how many of you have ever, when an end user comes with an issue, found, oh, it is the delivery controller that's at fault. It's always the profile technology, the application, an update, something in the image has changed. But how often is it like, oh, it's really the core Citrix components, like a delivery controller is not working? It's almost never. So yeah, but the end user, and Melissa says it right, the end user sees at the start that they are logging into their Citrix desktop. So every issue that arises after that, even if Microsoft is down and they cannot enter all Outlook 365, it's definitely a Citrix issue.
Exactly. Exactly. We see it all the time, which is why we take a different approach, and we actually start with the end users. So we look at the telemetry coming in from the end user's perspective across the entire IT infrastructure and correlate it all together into a single view so that we can see not just what's wrong, but we break through the silos, right? You don't have to pull together an incident response team where you've got 3 or 4 different teams coming together to try to identify what's causing some sort of an issue with a group of end users or maybe a VIP end user. You've got telemetry to be able to see everything correlated in a single place. And I'll show you what that looks like when we get into the product. I'll do a live demo for you. But again, all of this is designed to help you not have to put out so many fires, to move you from a reactive posture to a proactive posture, to be able to get ahead of issues by anticipating them before they happen, to, when we can't anticipate every issue, to be able to troubleshoot them quickly, and then to have the ability to provide the right sort of documentation, not just to be able to prove that you've permanently fixed the issue, but again, to be able to roll up to management the quality of the end user experience that you're delivering, not just something from a subjective set of surveys or survey questions, but objectively to report on actual data. So the first thing that we look at is really trying to get ahead of issues. And the first way we want to do that is by looking at things from an advanced warning perspective. So the capability to be able to monitor for application availability and performance, to get proactive alerts when those applications aren't performing. Chris, to your point, Microsoft is down. They go to log in, they think it's a Citrix issue. What's better than that scenario is you actually have received an alert that Microsoft is down, or that another critical application is down, so that your team is off troubleshooting the issue before end users even realize they can't access it. So we want to eliminate end users actually being the alert and get alerted ahead of time. So being able to
that's always what you want, indeed. You don't want to wait till your end users are coming to you with the issue. If you know, you should know the issue sooner than them. Yeah.
Exactly. And so we do things like front-end application monitoring. We can accommodate, two-factor authentication. We can test workflows. And, while the audience here is mostly concerned with Citrix applications, sometimes you're responsible, if you're especially at a smaller organization, for maybe some web apps as well. So being able to see beyond that, but just the first stage is, are the applications available? Can users even log into them? And if they're not, are you able to get alerted? And again, we'll jump in and show you what that looks like. But then the next thing is, Chris, you were talking about, delivery controllers, the actual Citrix infrastructure, being able to identify what could be going sideways within the delivery infrastructure that hasn't yet impacted end users, but could if you don't get a hold of it. And so we have a Citrix dependency map to help predict where end users' issues might potentially occur. And this isn't like a typical topology view. The moment you would deploy Goliath, it's automatically discovering your IT delivery infrastructure, and it's mapping out all of the dependencies across all of the elements. It's got pre-built thresholds based on industry best practices, so it's monitoring and alerting intelligently so that you can see what's happening. A lot of our users actually leverage this as like a knock view. So they'll start their day, maybe they've got some alerts set up, but they're not necessarily notifications. They don't want to be notified every time they have an alert. but they can come into this view and use it as a knock view and kind of get an overall picture of how the infrastructure is performing before they start their day. And if there are issues, they can just click on each of the elements, drill into it, see what's going on, and then potentially resolve issues before they ultimately impact end users. So this is all about staying ahead.
To be honest, I was deeply thinking now, like at my own question, like when is the last time a delivery controller? I actually did, like, I think it's like 5-6 years ago. I once was at a customer, users had issues signing in, and the credential wallet server stopped, and I had to start it again. And that is something that you would see in this overview, that service that is critical to Citrix would not be running on the delivery controller.
For sure.
And would be an easy fix.
And you might leverage things like automation for remediation tasks too, for server crash, those types. So there's a lot that you can do that is still proactive, that takes it out of the realm of waiting until end users are impacted to be sort of that alert mechanism. So
exactly. Yeah, you're right. With that part of automation, right? That's what you want as a Citrix admin, that if that credential wallet is stopped, not only see it, but it should have an automated script that would just restart the service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while we can't stay ahead of every issue, it becomes important then when we have to actually do some troubleshooting to be able to have the information that we need at hand, and then be able to leverage things like AI to help with that. So in Goliath, you've got access to copious amounts of data, but what you do with that, how it's being presented to you, is it meaningful? Is it actionable? That becomes the big question. And that's what we've done, is we've done more than just correlate a bunch of data points. We're incorporating the breadth of those data, and we're bringing them together in a single view. So we're collecting all the key telemetry across the IT delivery infrastructure, showing you exactly what's impacting end users, like things like session performance or issues with logon. And we're doing this and tying all those key elements into a single view, which gets you out of that siloed approach and to look at things, where you're having to look at things individually, oftentimes through multiple tools, maybe different teams as part of that. And then you have to sort of infer as to what might be going on. And of course, all the meanwhile, everybody's sort of pointing fingers away from their own IT elements as the cause onto other elements. So it's this game that everybody has to play. So right out of the box, we're including things like key trend lines, thresholds. We're monitoring over 250 key conditions, events, and failure points. So you don't actually have to be a Citrix expert to be able to troubleshoot end user experience issues. And we know that you all on the admin teams, the architects, level 3 guys, you're already stretched thin. There's not enough of you. We already know that there's a short supply of Citrix experts just in general. So this is a way to augment your team. It actually is like adding, 2 to 3 full-time Citrix staff to your staff, because it augments your team and makes the troubleshooting process more efficient for you. But we take that a step further now, and we add AI. So now we have our AI troubleshooting assistant that is integrated into our product, into our solution. And the whole point is there's really 2 primary use cases that most of our customers, as we've built this out, have been looking for. A, and Chris, you touched on this when you were talking about onboarding, A is product usage. So we have a bunch of tools, but we can't always remember what all capabilities the tools have, or how to do certain things within the tool. So, leveraging it for, can Goliath do this? Oh, great, it can. How do I do this within Goliath? Or where do I find this report? Or how do I see this data set? So being able to leverage it for product usage is one use case. And then the other use case is for troubleshooting help. Okay, so now I have this information. What are some things that I can do with this information to help me get to the root cause faster? Because we have our sort of typical troubleshooting disqualification process, which if we're starting from 0, starts at point 1, and you kind of go through all 30 or 40 steps of whatever the element is or issue is you're trying to solve until you find something that doesn't work. And then you say, okay, this is the issue. Now, why is it the issue? So we take all of that sort of out of that. And Chris, are you able to hear me? Because I can see in the chat there somewhere saying they can't see or hear.
I can see and hear you and see your presentation.
And here.
Others too. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see everything too.
All right, we will keep moving along. Just wanted to do a sanity check there. But again, you know, being able to take it a step further and say, okay, now that I know where there is an issue, what are some steps that I can do to help resolve that? So again, things like how to run reports or configure monitoring rules, or how do I run scripts, troubleshooting issues with logon or poor session performance. And again, when we get into the demo, I'll show you what that looks like. And then the last bit is really about understanding, you know, ways to leverage reporting and documentation. And we hear this all the time. The top 3 challenges that that IT has when it comes to reporting on end user experience are: number 1, there's no way to objectively report on how well IT is delivering. You're always subject to surveys, always are emotion filled, because who fills out surveys? People who are not happy with whatever their experience is. And then IT lacking the necessary data to actually improve the end user experience. So great, now you know that your users aren't happy. Why? What is it that's wrong? Where's the data that tells me what the issue is so that I can go in and resolve the issue? And then when a problem does occur, how do I know if it's amplified or if it's just, you know, if it's widespread, or if it's just a particular user who's particularly loud? So being able to leverage reporting for that. And we've got, you know, 40 plus out of the box reports with customizable options. They can be scheduled to automatically run and send. And our customers are using them from everything like objective proof of root cause and remediation, you know, to deep analysis and forensic troubleshooting, measuring productivity of end users, and benchmarking end user experience. So lots of different ways that customers are leveraging our reports. So before I jump into the demo, Chris, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's nice to remove the feeling out of it, right? A lot of time performance can be a feeling, and like you said, the people that are usually the least happy with the environment fill out the most forms, and it's always difficult to get a good view of your environment if you don't have any software monitoring your environment.
That is exactly it. That is exactly it. All right, so now the better part. Slide where it's done. Now we'll jump into the product. You can actually see how it works, what we're talking about. I'll show you the AI troubleshooting assistant. So what we'll do is we'll kind of go through, you know, sort of a day in the life of an IT admin, Citrix admin who's putting out fires all day. So we'll start off with, you know, maybe you've got application availability monitoring in place, and so you're taking a proactive approach that way, and you get an alert that, you know, one of your applications is down. This is happening before end users are showing up. Maybe the alert came in at you know 5:30 in the morning. You're able to get in there and start troubleshooting it. So you open up the application availability monitor, and you're able to see the applications that you have tests running for. And you can see, okay, I've got multiple applications that are down. What in the world is going on here? And you can click on the applications themselves and drill in a little bit further and see everything that's happening. We've recorded every stage of the application launch process, including detailed logs and screenshot evidence of exactly what's happened. So let's say you've got a scenario where, you know, maybe the tile isn't populating in storefront. And so if you're not quite sure what to do there, you can at least get a start. You can open up your AI troubleshooting assistant and you can say, there we go, make it a little bit bigger. You can say, okay, you know, tile is not populating in storefront. And so you type that into KIP, the AI troubleshooting assistant, and KIP's going to generate, you know, some potential issues and some things that you can go in and check if you've got a particular issue. And so maybe you suspect that there's storefront server outage. And so you want to know, well, how do I actually troubleshoot a storefront server outage? Maybe maybe you know how to do that, but there's multiple steps involved in that, and you just want a few extra tips on how to get started, maybe to help narrow it down for you. So, Chris, I want to kind of bring you in here at this point. You know, we've got an alert that came in, an application is down. Users aren't aware yet because they haven't showed up to work, and we're trying to get this resolved before they get in. You've got all this screenshot evidence here. You've got the detailed logs here, and then you've got some tips and cues from the AI troubleshooting assistant. Where do you go with this?
Yeah, so this is indeed a really good start. I do see we have to tweak Kip a little bit yet, because the first response of Kip should always be, have you tried turning it on and off again? so that's just a free tip I'm giving Goliath here.
Duly noted.
Yeah, now it is really good that you have indeed, if you don't know what to do and you suspect a storefront issue, the tips that Kip is giving you are just really handy to look in IAS, look in if they are running, look if the services are running. And again, 9 out of 10 times it's always like, hey, have you tried turning it on and off again? So that's why I made a joke, but sometimes it really helps. And yeah, starting with this and then signing into the storefront service is really it's going to help you. It's going to help you troubleshooting. Like normally, what a lot of us used to do as Citrix admin is we are actually not only a Citrix admin, we are a super ninja black belt at Googling Citrix issues. It's giving this error at the moment. Okay, let me open Google. Let me go to my CUGC forum. Let me go to the Citrix discussion forum. Let's search for this issue if anyone else has it and what's the solution, or maybe there's a KB number. And this is kind of removing the need to Google that much, because here you can just ask, okay, what should I do? And bam, it already comes with a checklist, and you should check the list. So that is. Yeah, it's removing our Google skills a little bit.
For sure. And Amir, sort of as a tag along to that. So no, we're not. Kip is not reaching out to the broader internet. It is a closed server where we're ingesting information into the server to be able to feed responses. And there's, you know, it's a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, it limits the scope for which you can find some answers. On the other hand, you're able to do a lot more around quality control on the responses that are coming back in. And it's going to continuously grow and be educated. And the information that we feed into it is going to be focused around Citrix product usage and troubleshooting tips. So it is focused on Citrix right now. But again, it's not calling out to the broader internet. And that's also in part because there's a wide-ranging set of opinions and views across organizations globally as to how they feel about AI and what that looks like within their organizations. So we want to be very careful and cognizant that that we keep a sort of a clear line of demarcation between customer data. So Kip isn't while it's integrated into Goliath, it's not pulling data from Goliath. It's calling out to Goliath's server for AI, but it's not calling out to the broader internet, and it's not capturing or collecting any data from your Goliath instance.
Yeah, that is really a really good thing, that it cannot just take the data, put it back to Goliath and be on internet and stuff. And that is like what I said in the very start, like we are working at Rawworks with customers to create their own versions of this, which like Goliath has done it with Citrix information. We have customers who are doing now with, like, for example, patient information that is running on their own hosted Chat GPT instance, their own hosted Azure AI instance. that is not connected to the internet in any way and can share that data, or is going to look up stuff on the internet. Because also Chat GPT still has a lot of hallucinations where it can give wrong answers. Yeah. And like Keary is saying, being in control of what answers it's supposed to give or what data set it can access will help minimizing hallucinations compared to the internet. The other thing I want to respond on really quick is Sylvia saying the problem persists when you have numerous monitoring systems for your infrastructure and none of them are compatible with Citrix. And this is a good thing, because this is stuff that I heard when I come to customers a lot. They say, okay, why should we buy Goliath or one of the competitors? You know, like, why should you buy the monitoring software? We already have SCOM. We already have Nagios. We already have Intername. The thing is that our infrastructure monitoring services are not the same as performance monitoring. So those are really those green and orange lights. Are these services up? Is it available and stuff? But it's not showing you what process is causing this server to be slow, and which is the user that is starting that process, and all that data. That they are separate products. So if you have issues at your company and they don't see that, try and explain to them they are separate products. They can run next to each other. That's perfect. You can have Goliath be your performance monitoring software of your Citrix farm, and you can have SCOM, Nagios, whatever, be there for your complete infrastructure, just to have those check marks. There is a difference between infrastructure monitoring and performance monitoring, and that is like something that we always have to keep in mind. And if you have one or the other, then you're missing out on data. Then when there is a Citrix issue and you can only see, oh, the Citrix farm is, the servers are up and they're green, but an end user is coming like, with my application is slow. It's not showing that because it's not designed to show that. And there are other products that can show that, like Goliath. And it's important to have both to have the complete picture. So that would be my thing for that.
No, and that's a good point, Chris. And the other part of it too is even if you've got access to all of these tools, which is not always the case, by the way. Sometimes the different teams have access to different tools. You're still having to go across multiple tools to infer what's impacting that end user. So to your point, Chris, understanding the performance aspect of it, how do these IT elements impact the end user? That becomes a really important missing piece of information, particularly for Citrix admins who are blamed for everything. Everything has to is blamed on Citrix. So you want to have a tool that's going to be able to make it easy to figure out exactly what's impacting that end user's experience. George is paying close attention. He's reading every word on the screen. This is just a demo, George. I'm not actually troubleshooting real scenarios within our demo, our lab environment. Just again, trying to kind of hit some main ideas that you would typically see on a day-to-day basis. So even if you're back to the demo, even if you're you're troubleshooting application issues, here you can see there's a lot of red here. Maybe you want to have a better understanding of exactly what's happening with your applications across the organization, and you don't remember how to run that report in Goliath. And so that's where you get back into the sort of the product usage, right? How do I run an application availability report? I don't even know if I can. Does Goliath even do that? Let's see. So then you type that in, and it gives you step-by-step instructions as to how to run that application availability report. So getting back into product usage as well. All right, let's move on to another scenario. Maybe it's logon duration, slow logons. We hear that all the time. So we go into our sessions here. Let me get Kip out of the way. Oops. We go into our sessions. We have a particular user that is complaining about slow logon. George, you will notice here that none of these users should be complaining about a slow logon, because right now our environment is humming along pretty good. But let's say we have a user that is complaining about a slow logon. So we can go and open up their session. By the way, if this were in fact the logon that was breaching a particular threshold, this column right here, this would be yellow or potentially red, depending on how long the logon was taking. So it would make it easy for you to identify quickly. But we go in, users complaining about a slow logon, so we can click on the logon tab and really just drill down into what in the world might potentially be happening with this logon. And we can see here in this example, this is actually a pretty good logon. But let's say that there was an issue with maybe the server validation stage is taking too long. So we can go over to Kip. Again, I'll make him a little bit larger here. And we can type in, the server validation stage is taking too long. What could potentially be the cause of that? And again, the whole idea here is that this is giving you a quick view into what could be potential issues. So before we go look at that response, one thing I just want to point out, if you're not familiar with Goliath, first of all, I opened up this session and you can see all of the IT elements that impact that end user session, all correlated and presented in a single view. And you can drill in, and I'll show you in our next example how we can drill in a little bit further. But it's all right here in one view, everything that impacts that end user. Now we know that this is a particular logon issue, so we're drilling down into the logon drill down tab, and here we can see more details about the logon, every stage, in fact, of the logon process broken down, even sub-stages. We capture telemetry around that and present that all the way down to the VDA session startup and the workspace session startup. But in this example, we were looking and saying, okay, server validation stage is taking too long. What could be the potential issue? So you can type that into Kip, and Kip will go in and let me make that a little bit larger for you. Kip will start to spit out some responses as to what could potentially be the root causes of these issues. Now, if you're typing into this and you get a response back that you don't think is particularly helpful, you can thumbs up or thumbs down a response, and that helps us know on the back end whether or not the information, maybe it's wrong altogether, shouldn't be, but could be, or maybe it's just not enough detail. And so we look at that and we say, okay, it's a good answer, but they want more detail. Let's figure out how to get Kip trained up to be able to provide more detail. So being able to take that information and figure out what's going on. Maybe there was an issue with group policy. So again, you're drilling down into the logon process. Again, we're capturing all the substages here. Maybe there's an issue with group policy. So you can type into Kip, how do I troubleshoot, group policy issues? And then we'll get a response. And this will give you some starting places to go. Because again, you have your typical disqualification process that you go through when you've got a user with logon issues, and you kind of have to start from square one, and you just go through the process until something breaks, and then you have to figure out why that thing broke. So this gives you not only a quick view into exactly where the issue is at. So again, if there was an issue in any one of these stages, you would see it visually represented as well, timestamps within the technology. But then you can go a step further and say, what exactly could the issue be? Maybe here. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, and it's funny. You also see like the first one is verify like group policy settings, check that policy settings on affected machines, and check if it's saying like invalid policy settings and stuff. I've have this happen at a real customer. Everyone always configures in the group policies the site to so on list. Some websites of a customer need to be opened in the internet, so on. I think even Microsoft 365 requires you to edit the site to so on list if you want single sign-on without ADFS. And this customer made an error in just a type error, and that really weird. But that type error. The group policy just hanged on that at the customer. So we were able to, show which group policies are are running every day, like you do here. You can unfold it and you see it. And we just saw that one of these group policies, the one that with the site to son list, was taking like 6 seconds. And you might be like, oh, 6 seconds, but 6 seconds every day on everyone that's signing in. 700 users each day waited 6 seconds on that policy. While you see here, like Keary is showing now a healthy user, and group policy itself, the whole group policies is handled up, believe, a second. And just having that misconfiguration cost everyone 6 seconds every day, 700 people every time they signed in. And the fix was so easy. It was just, oh, wait, there's a mistake in the site son list. We fixed it. And bam, we saved like 6 seconds of the sign-in every day. That easy. And those are the results you want. And this is also what Kip is saying, like verify that those group policies are correct and if there are not invalid policy settings, because invalid policy settings can really sometimes make the login process longer. So yeah, this is exactly what I had at a customer. So
well, and the other thing,
it's doing a good job.
Perfect. That's good. The other thing too, when you're issues like this for an end user, and we have an example. This is an example that's happened within the last month. We have a customer that needed some help troubleshooting. There were a handful of users that were complaining about long logon times, and they were going through the process to figure out what the issue was. And they are relatively new Goliath customers, so they will go in quickly and see exactly which users were impacted, what devices they were connecting through, what the connection path looked like, where they were getting in. Anyways, they were able to quickly figure out that there was a host mapping issue. And they thought, okay, this is, they resolved it for these handful of users, and they're like, oh, we suspected there was a problem there. We didn't have any way to really identify it. Goliath helped them to identify the problem. So then what they started to do was proactively look at other users to see if, maybe there are some other users who are impacted by the same host mapping issue. And they got through their analysis and they were able to correct the issue. And in the end, while everybody was impacted to varying degrees, Chris, you're saying 6 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but multiply that times every user in the environment. This issue impacted 67,000 users at this organization. So, and they didn't even know it until there were a handful of users who complained about slow logons. They thought that they resolved the issue. Well, they did resolve the issue for, this handful of users, but then discovered the issue that was impacting them, which was impacting them heavily, actually impacted every user across the organization. And they didn't have any visibility into that prior to.
Yeah, and like setting up group policies, installing Citrix, setting up FS logics, all those types of things are still human work, and we make mistakes. And just one misconfiguration can, what you say, like it can have impact while signing in. So yeah, that's also that I hope that AI comes in quick to set those environments up for us so that human mistakes are not made anymore. And then we can have the Kip check the AI if it did a good job setting up the environment, but I think we're a couple of years away.
We'll get closer. I suspect that well, I'm fairly certain that the technology will be capable of it far sooner than we're willing to allow it to do it.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into another example. Maybe we've got a user who's submitted a ticket and they're saying that that Citrix is slow. You hear that all the time, right? That's probably, if you had to put one phrase that encompassed most of your tickets that you get, it's usually Citrix is slow. We'll use the same session for this example. Again, you're seeing everything that is impacting this end user's experience all correlated in the single place. You can see their round trip time. So we can see, okay, they're complaining their session's slow. I can automatically or immediately see that there's definitely a correlation between what's happening with round trip time, network latency, and connection speed. And probably CPU usage all happening at the same time. You can drill into each of these, and then you've got threshold lines. So it shows you exactly, you know, whether or not you don't have to. Long story here is you don't have to interpret what the data means, because we do that for you. So when we move into the caution and past a critical line, we know there's going to be an issue that's going to impact a user's session experience. So we can see here a big spike at 9:49 in ICA round trip time. Same exact time, we have a big spike in network latency, but just a spike there at that time and a spike at the end, but the rest of it's pretty good. So not sure what's happening there, because this is definitely unstable for much longer than just that initial spike at the beginning and the end. So we take it a step further and look at the user's connection speed and see what's happening there. And we can definitely see the connection speed is unstable for sure, but never goes below that critical line. So when it's in this cautionary line, you know, if you've got high-powered users, you know, maybe doctors, engineers, you know, they're leveraging heavy graphic-intensive programs, CAD, imaging software, whatnot, they would definitely be impacted by a connection speed that drops below this cautionary line. But for most users, it's not going to be an issue. They're going to have no noticeable difference in their user experience. So this particular user is not one of those power users, has no reason to be leveraging you know, graphic intensive applications. So connection speed could be a factor, but not necessarily. We have to do a little bit more investigation. We can also see that CPU usage was rather high. So more than likely, this user was using an application that was taking up a lot of resources and squeezing the bandwidth. So now let's dig in a little bit further. We can jump into the ICA HDX tab, and we can now see a little bit more detail, including user experience. Because at this point, I suspect the user is at fault here. I don't think it's something to do with Citrix itself or with the IT infrastructure. I suspect the user is doing something that their session is probably not designed to let them do. And immediately right here, I can see that they've got a lot of thin wire usage. And you can see here, I know it's thin wire because it's purple and I look at it every day. But you can see here all of the user experience metrics that we're collecting from the different ICA channel metrics. And I can see that thin wire is being used here. I can also see that the frames per second is up past 25 and 30, which means they're not switching between applications. You know, application switching will show a frame rate change, but they're probably streaming some video. But you know, maybe I want to be sure, and so I'm going to open up KIP, and I'm going to find out. Okay, so what are some things that could cause high thin wire bandwidth usage? Again, I suspect the user's doing something. Oh, look, very first thing that pops up is video streaming. So I'm fairly certain at this point that that the user is probably streaming some video. But the one question mark that I have is that the network latency spikes once at the beginning, once at the end, but it's pretty good through the rest of it. So I just want to verify whether or not, sorry, I'm moving between monitors here, whether or not HD video can cause high ICA latency, but not necessarily network latency. Now, I did see some network latency, but like I said, it wasn't all the way through. And so I can see here, yes, I get some validation here that is in fact the case. So now I can go back to that end user and say, okay, look, this isn't a Citrix issue. What were you doing at, you know, what was that timestamp here we had? What were you doing at 9:49, you know, during that particular day? Were you using some applications that are maybe outside of the workday applications? What, you know, you're a user whose session is built basically to handle, you know, productivity applications. So now you've got some ammunition to go back to that user and say, okay, I suspect it's an issue on your side. Let's talk about that. So Chris, when you've worked with customers in the past, you know, do you ever come across scenarios where they're troubleshooting, and this question goes to anybody on the call, scenarios where you get tickets coming in, Citrix is slow, users are complaining, but it ends up being, or you suspect anyways, that it ends up being that something that the user's doing, but you haven't really had the ability to prove that definitively.
Yeah, yeah. Often, and one thing shot through my mind really quick too, that I actually now we're going thinking about like maybe bad behavior of the end user. They're on YouTube streaming video, not doing their work, okay. But I actually have seen this happen the other way around. That the company put out a new intranet post that had a YouTube video linked. So everyone in the company, like 1,000 people at the same time, clicked on the YouTube link and started streaming, and that gives also some of these things like high CPU, high connection, speeds dropping, latency, and a lot of trouble. And I know that there are some companies now out there that when they are posting a YouTube video on the internet, they actually say it underneath, like, don't click it immediately or else you crash the system. So yeah, it's not always bad behavior, but yeah, it's nice to see like, oh, is this happening? And yeah, to be able to talk to your end user, like, okay, we're seeing high network latency. Of course, I've been around for a long time. I've seen like people streaming music on with video, or just turning on an internet radio, or even things of like, this is just one small performance tip I'm gonna give, but for your companies who you work at, invest in ad blockers. Invest in like something like a pie hole that can scrape from your Citrix environment the ads, because even some end users, if they open a news website, they get all these flashy banners with moving stuff, and that is often even more CPU intensive than even streaming a YouTube video. And just removing all that, but those banners, those flashing stuff, gives you direct performance back. So that is just a small performance tip there. We did a measurement that one Dutch news site, you opened it and it would take 12% of your CPU, and adding the ad blocker, it would take 1% CPU. So those are also things like what you're seeing here. It could also just be an ad running on something, but it is at least nice to have a start talking point with your customer or with your like users. Client end users. Indeed, like having a nice point, like, okay, we are seeing this, you say Citrix is slow, but what are you doing? Because we are seeing high network and latency.
Yeah, and that's it. You know, oftentimes we have a hunch that it's on the end user side. Could be a connection issue, connection speed issue. Being able to drill into that and see exactly what's happening with that particular user's connection speed, that becomes an important piece of information that goes into the overall conversation as to what's impacting that particular end user. So I know we're running up on time. Just a couple things to wrap up on. If you haven't already attended or registered to attend, we do a monthly masterclass series where we feature different CTPs. Chris has been our guest on past masterclass sessions as well. This month, we've got Alexander Irving Johnson, who's going to be joining us. And we're going to be tackling different scenarios where that the attendees submit for troubleshooting scenarios. So it's not like a typical webinar where we go through a bunch of slides. We do a quick introduction, and then we jump right into troubleshooting scenarios, and it's an open discussion for most of the sessions. So I encourage you to register for the webinar series. Again, we do it every month, cover different topics each month. If you're interested in a POC or a free trial or would like a demo license, you can reach out to techinfo@goliathtechnologies.com, or you can go to our website, or you can snap a view of or a picture of the QR code here. Happy to set you guys up with a trial license so you can test it out. We also offer free consulting licenses and MFRs as well. We've kind of been handling Q&A all throughout the session, so the chat has been very, very lively. So since we're out of time, I don't think we can really do anything with Q&A, but I appreciate everybody's time on the session, and Chris, especially your time as well. Really appreciate you jumping on and presenting with me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for having me, and it was nice to talk to everyone, of course.
Stephanie, thanks for having us as well. Really appreciate it, and thank you for hosting. And thank you all you who have attended, and frankly stuck around to the end.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. It was a great presentation. And like I said, I'll send out the recording link tomorrow. And then Keary, Chris, if there's anything you want me to include, links or any resources you want me to include in that follow-up email, just send them on. I'll take care of that too.
Of course, the link to my band.
I was going to do that for sure. That was a given.
Everyone.
All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.